This week on SV Lynx. Welcome to this week's SV Lynx video. We've got a lot of work to get done this week, extending the bridge deck.
Right, and we also have kind of a big problem that we discovered to do with power, but we'll get to that, and we won't make you wait to the end of the video for that. We'll get to that pretty soon here. But before we head to the lot to get to work, we did forget a few things that we got on our order last week, and we thought we'd show you those. So I got a little bin here full of the smaller parts, and we'll start with a real small one. We have these little ports that go up on the deck, and there's two different kinds here, although we may have to order some more because what we have here is water and diesel, and that's great, but we're also going to need pump outs for our gray water and black water tanks, so I may have to order a few more of these on there. And they have a nice little stainless key that goes inside of there to take these out. So they sent us a few of those in case we drop one overboard. They do have a hole in the back here that we can put to a lanyard, so probably a good idea. Then we have these.
Deck cleats?
Yeah, they're kind of neat. I like these. They're nice and rounded, and they kind of have a curve there. Should be pretty easy to work and get those on. So they have a whole bunch of different sizes and such of those. And we showed you a large port light. You hope that. This is the smaller ones that go inside the heads, and I think there's one at the end of the stern cabin as well. And they have screens that get inserted in there, so no bugs, hopefully. And so this is the same single latch mechanism that we like so much about these particular port lights from Goyo. So you just have that one latch, and that's nice. These are handrails. We ordered some assortment of some sizes here. There's just places where you need to hold on. Like I believe this one goes just on the way outside of the helm, so that you can grab that as you're swinging around yourself on out onto the deck, side deck. So you just give you something to hold on to. But we have several of these. And that brings us to a big item we forgot.
Yeah.
The ship's wheel.
Our wheel.
So this will be, let's lower it down here. So this will be the Admiral's position. And of course there's the mount for it, and this is a locking brake system that also allows us to lock the wheel. So got all those different small parts. Excuse me. Got all those different small parts and a few more little things in there, doodads here and there. But we're looking forward to installing this. Okay, well, just wanted a brief thing on that, but Brian and I have got a lot of work to do, and we're going to have some help in this week as well. Our patron and good friend now, Jeff, is going to stop by for at least a couple days, and Brian's brother Dale as well. So we've got some help coming in to help us work on the boat. So let's get over to the lot and show you what's going on. This week we're getting started by gluing in that forward bow chamfer panel set. So it's very cool out now, although it will reach into the mid 80s, or this is Celsius today, which is very pleasant temperature, and we can epoxy pretty much all day. So we're starting in early though, and I'm going to use some West System epoxy here, and we're going to glue the bottom edge of the chamfer panel down, at least part of it. And so Brian's over there getting it cleaned up and ready, and I'm going to mix him up a batch here of thickened epoxy. Now, we switched roles here. Typically he's mixing and I'm applying like that, but problem is that I had a little minor surgery this weekend, and it wasn't anything crazy, but just a little skin thing that I had to have removed. But they did put some stitches in me, and so climbing around inside of a boat is rather difficult right now. So I'm letting Brian do the climbing, but standing and mixing isn't too bad. They said no heavy lifting or hard labor. Well, I can get rid of some of the heavy lifting. The hard labor is going to have to continue though. So what I just did there is I just adding the flock portion of the mixture in, and it's at about 3%. And now I'm going to add in our silica. Now this we mix to taste, but I've got to have a mask on for this before I get started there. The silica gets up in the air and we don't really want to breathe it in, so. Found if I put my hand over the top as I'm stirring it, some still gets out in the air, but not as much. This is my new technique I've learned. But you can't stop some of it getting in the air. So I'm looking for a round mayonnaise. That's pretty close. But I'm going to go with just a little bit more. We don't want it to flow out the bottom of the crack in this case. That's getting pretty good. And now we're going to put it into a piping bag so that it's easy for Brian to squeeze out into the crack. All right, let's head over there. And now to the starboard side we go. Same drill. Okay, we've got this part of the forward chamfer panel glued in at the bottom. We already did the top up there. We got Dale helping today, and as you can see, we're trying to glue the bottom side of the forward chamfer panel, and to get that beast to be flat and lined up, we had to put in 6 support boards along there. Yeah. And it's a little bit of a gap, not much, but just enough that we're going to put a piece of tape so that the epoxy doesn't run out until it sets up a little bit, and we'll pull the tape off before it's fully set up. But Dale has to wiggle in between all those boards to do this. This morning, we've been filling in all these kerfs with a honey consistency epoxy so that it'll seep down into here, but not run so much that it runs off down onto the boat. And so this is just the first layer. We'll let it set up and then it'll suck in a little bit and we'll do another layer and get this filled in. And we did that all along both sides of the boat. Once this is all set, we have some more work for tabbing all of these bulkheads to this, and then we're going to put glass on everywhere, and a whole layer of glass over everywhere that's been curved. So there's lots of work to go there. But right now what we're doing, since it's too hot to do any more epoxy work, we're just taking measurements for all of the tabbing we're going to do in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get measurements and have Brian write them down. You got something to write on, Brian?
I do.
I just sat on epoxy. Great. Now, Brian and I have been doing some planning, and we came up with some small issues that turned out to be lead to other issues and bigger issues. So let me show you. Let's go upstairs. The issue is power. And what we originally intended was that the batteries were going to be right down in that area right there. The electric motor's up in the front of there, and there'd be a separate compartment, and the batteries would sit right there. But we had a weight problem with the boat, weight distribution of too much weight to the stern, not enough at the bow. And so Schoening requested that we move these batteries up to the bow area, which would be right up in there, just under the forward bunk. So we did, meaning we planned to do that. And then we started working on other issues like where the diesel would be and such. And if you recall, we finally settled on putting the diesel in this compartment and the one right in front of it there. So those two on the inboard side of that, or the outboard side would be the plumbing and the shower and stuff like that. And so that moved the diesel centered so that as we used up diesel, it didn't change the balance fore and aft on the boat. And that seemed to all work fine as long as we moved the water way up in front of where the batteries were going to be up there. In the same bunk, just the forward compartment in front of it. That's where the trouble started, because Brian and I started looking at what we've set up for power, and we put these big bus bars through right here that go all the way through the bridge deck and go over to the other engine compartment where the diesel is and the other electric motor. Well, that electric motor can need up to 460 amps of power. And so these bus bars down here are perfectly capable of taking 460 amps over there. They're capable of taking 900 amps. So you always want to oversize things so they don't get warm. And so those are plenty good for that. But when Schoening wanted us to move the batteries up front, we now had to bring power from there back here, but it isn't 460 amps anymore. It's for both electric motors. So that's 920 amps that have to come from there up two new bus bars that would have to run down the side here, through the wall here, and connect into these two bus bars and also take power down to the electric motor down there. Well, that's a problem because we don't want to run those bus bars through there because there's difficulty here. There's reinforcements in these bulkheads that go right through that area. You can see it better over there where that white stripe is, and we don't want to cut into that. So it's very difficult for us to run those two bus bars back here. And they're also expensive and heavy because unlike these two, they have to carry much more amperage. So they have to carry 920, and you want to, again, oversize them. So really, you're going to want to take them up to more like 14 or 1500 amps that they're capable of carrying so that 900 isn't overheating them. Well, that means some very large and copper bus bars to do that. And the weight of those bus bars is something like over 100 pounds and for that length. And also the cost is about $2,000 for that. So it's expensive, it's heavy, and I have no good easy way to run those through there to these two bus bars. So that's a lot of problems that causes us. So we're going to redo this whole idea again.
on where the diesel and where the water and where the power goes and everything. I'm moving the batteries back where I originally wanted to put them, right here. Because now all I have to do is connect some cables up to these bus bars here, and just 460 amps worth of cable that has to connect here. So that's no problem. It's a fairly short run from right there to here. So again, length matters too. It just makes the power system function properly. And the other 460 amps has to go right, 2 feet to the other electric motor right there. So I've got the bus bars for it. I've got the other motor right next to the batteries, and a short run to these 2 big bus bars. So everything's great except weight, because I've now taken 600 pounds from where the batteries are up there and moved it back here, and that's going to mess up the weight balance on the boat. So here's some of the solutions I have for that. The first thing is I'm going to move these diesel tanks again, and what I'm going to do is, instead of diesel in this compartment, I'm going to not put any diesel in that one. And so the next compartment over is going to be diesel. So that moves the diesel more forward. Well, that diesel weighs a lot. It weighs something like 1,000 pounds, that diesel. About 500 in each of those tanks. So when I move them forward, I'm taking 500 pounds, and no longer is it centered, but that 500 pounds is now going beyond the center point of the boat, and it's starting to offset some of that weight of the batteries back here. But if you recall, we had trouble with the idea of as we use the diesel, that changes the balance of the boat. So what we plan on doing is, most of the time when we use diesel, we're going to pull out of the stern tank, because there's 2 tanks there. And we're going to pull out of the stern tank, and that one is centered. And so that won't change the balance of the boat at all. And we'll keep the other tank in front of it as the reserve diesel that we save for more emergency situations and such. And so the weight of that will still be there. But there's a third element to that, because we might need to use some of that diesel. And so if we go back up to where we're going to put the water tank up there, we're not using the entire space that we could use up there. We're going to take the top of the water tank and bring it up a little bit, so that there's an additional maybe 20 to 25 gallons of water up there on both sides of the boat. And so when you start doing that, you start talking about 300 pounds of water, additional water. And so what we can then do is not run that water tank full most of the time. As long as the diesel's all full, we probably won't have to have that water full. And if we use up the first tank of diesel, it won't affect anything either, because that's centered. And so we don't have to worry about it. It's only if we start to use the second diesel tank, the sort of emergency fuel tank that we have in reserve. But if we need to use it, we can always then start making water and putting more water into that larger water tank, and put the weight we lose from using the diesel will add back into the water tank. And so that allows us to balance all that. And that also will allow us to put the batteries back here, because we're talking about moving 525 pounds of diesel forward and adding another 250 pounds of water forward. And so that is going to offset this weight that's back here quite a bit. And so that's sort of the new plan. I've already contacted Schoening about this, and they're going to run this through their program to find out what the balance of the boat does after I do this to it. But one way or another, we're going to figure out how to do this. Now, I have one more possible way to balance the boat out a little bit more. Let's say that it's still off and the bow is still light, even when we add the extra water up there, but the batteries are back here. Well, right up here, in this compartment right here, is our dive compressor. And that's where I want it. And hopefully we'll be able to stay there. But if worst case scenario, and I really need to get more weight forward, I'll take that dive compressor and put it up there, and where the batteries were going to be. So that would be in that compartment there. And I'll put the dive compressor there. Again, I don't want to do that because I'm now putting it underneath of one of our beds. I'll have to double wall the bottom of the mattress wall, that the mattress sits on to cut down on heat transfer and stuff. I'd much rather keep it back here. But if I have to, that's another 200 pounds I can take off the stern and move forward. So I'll let them run their calculations without doing that. And if they tell me it's still too light on the front, then I'll tell them, well, I can move the dive compressor up there. So that's the new plan. But I'm going, like I said, one way or another, these batteries are staying here because it's just too much trouble. Now, that added weight of the water that I'm adding, more water up there, just so you know, is offset quite a bit by removing these heavy bus bars that weigh nearly well, more than 100 pounds of bus bar. So that I'm getting rid of because I don't have the weight of those bus bars anymore. So I can add that as water weight more forward to help balance us there. So anyway, those are all the thoughts behind this. And love to hear your comments. Again, this is an ongoing planning, but we've got to get this settled pretty soon because in about a week or two, maybe 2 at the most, I want to start building the diesel tanks in here. And that means I have to have settled on where those diesel tanks are going to go for sure. So we don't have much more time to fuss around with all these changes that I'm making. But I should be able to get this settled down by then. But if you have comments, I'd love to read them. So we already put a layer of thin on here because we wanted it to seep down in. But after it seeps down in, it leaves the top with gaps in it. So we're just going to smear this on here. Fill in the top now. The lower part is all filled already. Now we're just filling the top. So we'll probably hit this all again once it sets up because epoxy tends to shrink a little bit. So probably have to hit this a 3rd time. But it's starting to get sealed up, and pretty soon we'll be ready to glass the inside of this as well. So we're back in the cockpit, and we're working on the starboard side of the boat, extending out the boxed bridge deck out further underneath of the bike garage. And so we've already glued on the face of it, which is, or my foot, I'll show you, right there, and the wings out here and over there. But we also need to tab this. And so we've sanded it all and cleaned it all, and now Jeff's here helping today and actually tomorrow. And Jeff's going to take care of all of this. So first thing he's doing is getting his thickened epoxy in a cove down here. And then Brian's out here because we're up in the boat. So Brian's doing the mixing down there, and as soon as he's mixed it up, his current batch, while Jeff does this, I'm going to quit giving you a tour so much, and I'm going to come and put on this little piece here, and these go right here, like so. And then there's one on the other side over here as well. Ooh, I'm tripping. And this one goes over here. And so we couldn't put these on yet because the temporary bulkhead was in the way, but we've moved those now. And so it's time to get these on. And then once these are on, we can put the piece that goes along the face of this over here, all the way along here and all the way up to the bulkhead 5. So everything between 5 and 6 will have that face goes on here. And that's that piece on the floor right here, this one. The opening right there is where the stairway goes. So that's why there's a cutout right there. So I'm going to be working in the salon while Jeff's working in the cockpit here. And Brian's mixing. And once Brian's done mixing for us, because after he gets my thickened done, there's something just fell right there, Jeff. It is right there. You just fell something. It's a dark thing right in the middle of the epoxy. I don't know what that is, but it just fell in there. Anyway, so Jeff's going to be putting his tabbing in. So Brian's going to be mixing him some straight epoxy while I'm working on the salon area. But once Brian's done mixing that, we're done mixing epoxy for the moment. So he'll come up and help Jeff put on like the peel ply and such for this whole area here. So we're getting lots of things done all simultaneously, and a lot of that is because Jeff's here helping today. So thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Getting our layer of epoxy on this wing now. Set that down for a minute. Okay, to the other side. I already sanded all this, but I want to give it one wipe down before, because dust gets everywhere while we're doing other things. Okay, that's right level. All set. Those wings are on, and they'll set up in the next half hour or so because it's not hot. It's about 82 degrees Fahrenheit, but this in Celsius. But it's west system, which sets up faster. We wanted it to set up faster because today we want to put on the facing piece that goes across, and so this has to be set up before we can do that. So in 30-40 minutes this will be hard enough to glue this to. So head back over and see what Jeff and Brian are up to. Jeff's wetting out now to get the tabs on, and Brian's over there already putting in peel ply on that little corner, so that one's already set. And now we've got these two compartments to go, and these extensions will be on. Now these aren't the end of extensions. Going out from the face of this, there's going to be further extensions out because this floor keeps coming out a little ways, making room for that bike garage right here. But those are supported by the cupboards, because this is all cupboards here for the hallway, and of course for the rear cabin has cupboards on the sides here, and we got to get all those in as well. But this is the start. We got to get this extension in first, and so that's nearly ready to go. And then where Brian's foot is right there. Yes, it's pointing right at it. That you can see is where our conduits and bus bars come through. So what we're going to be doing there is putting a cupboard face on there that is hinged, so it'll open up, and we can access those bus bars and such when we need to, but close it up so that somebody doesn't reaching into the electrical portion there later when they're just going into a cupboard. So that'll all be sealed up, but we'll be able to unlatch it and fold it down. And if we need to get in there to redo any of the cable connections to the bus bars, or just inspect it, make sure things are good, or run a new wire through the conduits. So we needed access to that on both sides. So over on this side, you can see that we've already got all of this finished. In fact, this is all ready for the peel ply to be pulled out. That's most of it. That was that cupboard. Let's pull the one on this cupboard. So I like pulling peel ply. Now, the peel ply that came on the panels from Schoening, I don't like pulling that because it's been sitting on there for so many years. Well, not so many years, so many months, year and a half, that it's kind of hard to pull. But you can see, this stuff comes out with just some tugs, and we're good to go. This one piece right here is going to be a little harder to get to because it doesn't have a starting point. But not too hard. There we go. All nice. So that's going nowhere. And Jeff's getting our tabs set. This is the first layer, and then he'll wet that out and then get to the second one. So it's time to put on our facing piece on our box bridge deck extension out here. And so we've got it all sanded and wiped down with alcohol. And so we're just gluing it in right now. So we're going to put glue down here. Okay, just hold it there. So that's a wrap for today. Got lots of stuff done. Some of it we didn't show you. We were working on straightening the bow chamfer panels yet again. You've seen plenty of that. So there's probably 6 more rounds of that to go. We just work on it a little bit in the mornings each day. But as far as new work goes, we've got this side panel in here in the salon now. Tomorrow morning we'll put the other side. And we've also done the cockpit ones that you saw earlier. So good progress made today. And we'll be back tomorrow with Jeff helping us again tomorrow. We might have somebody else as well. So we're good for today. And the only thing I didn't show you here was we can clamp the top parts with the orange clamps, but the bottom we have no way of clamping that. So we just use 2x4s to push the bottom up tight, you know, along the way there. And we needed 1 at each of these fins. So there's 4 of those that are supporting that. And so now it's all set, and it'll harden up by tomorrow. So we'll see you then, and we'll pull the peel ply off over here and get to work on the port side. So next up on our hit list is we're working on the sole in the port side cockpit area, which is over here. And so we've got our laser level out down here to get us a level line here, because this piece of sole goes all the way in here, and then it also goes all the way across over here. So it's this piece that goes in here. So the first thing you can see I'm holding here are some small pieces that we're going to glue these on the sides so that the floor has something to land on along these flat pieces here. So these would be glassed on, coved underneath of them, glued on top to the sole as it comes down. And we've got to also, besides that, tab all these. So we've got to get tabbing done on these 3 areas right here. Now I could do those later, but with the sole in there, that would be a nasty reach up into a narrow spot to do those, where it's wide open right now. So we're going to go ahead and tab that in now so that life is easy. So here comes Brian. He's got our fiberglass and our peel ply cut for this very job. And I've already got it sanded and cleaned up, so he can go ahead and mix up about 400 Sycamine. We're going to go Sycamine right now because it's in the later afternoon after lunch, and so we're at about 83 degrees, which is still fine for doing epoxy work in Fahrenheit and that in Celsius. But it's at the edge of it. It's getting warm. So we want something that sets up a little slower for this. Now, while he's mixing that, over here, we've got these gluing in, and we did that this morning. So these are the extensions for the box bridge deck, which is this part, starting to extend out. Remember yesterday I showed you us doing this one. So this one's already all glassed in along parts of it and stuff, but and glued. We have some more tabbing to do on it. down along the bottom edge there. So we'll be getting to that, but not today. So these are starting to get done, and that's starting to widen out our salon area here. That's not as wide as it goes, but it's starting to give some of the support for it widening out. The rest of the support, because this floor goes out further here, but the cupboards that we build underneath of here are going to support the floor over there. So this is the sort of the back of the cupboard right there. And this area you see here is not used for anything unless we need to run a conduit, or any power or whatever we want to run can run down there. So we won't be sealing that up until we've got our conduit running through there. So we've got a little work to do there as well. We'll have to drill some holes in there and stick the conduit in along here, so that we can bring power from our forward cabin over there down here. And actually, truthfully, the forward cabin power is going to come straight up here and go straight along the back of here, because remember, this is furniture here. It'll come right along the back over here to the nav station right here, because all of our electronics are going to be run to the nav station. The nav station is where the brain's going to be in the digital switching. So there'll be a digital switching module in that cabin, and then just a wire that comes up here so that we can control that stuff. But we do need to bring power besides just the control, the digital control wire that goes over to the nav station. So we have to bring power, and so that's going to come back from this area over here. That's where the batteries are going to be under the bed right there. And so the power needs to come up here and run through a conduit inside of here, and go into, to bring power up to that room. Now, as far as power going across the other side of the boat, that's already taken care of, because the bus bars right here run through the bridge deck and they come over to here. And so we've got power on this side of the hull. So what happens now is, from these two bus bars, another conduit is going to run right in here actually, and it'll come through the bulkhead, and it's going to run inside of here right on down, and that'll take power to the starboard side cabin over there. So that's why there has to be conduits inside of these two to bring power to each of their forward cabins in their respective hull. So we won't be sealing this up until those conduits are in. But that's not today. I'm just waiting on epoxy, so I'm just showing you what we're getting planned for the future. Right now, we want to get this piece of sole in, because over here we have a temporary sole piece in, just so we can walk up and down in here. But this will get replaced fairly soon with the real thing. But over here, we're just going to put the real thing in right now and get this sole in right here. Now, after we put the sole in right here, it's going to stick out about to where my board is right there. And there are extra supports that get glued on beneath it to support that. And those are part of the cupboards in the stern cabin right here. But we can put this floor in and still put those in whenever we want. So that's not a real issue with us putting this piece of sole in. So we're going to go ahead and get this in, because we need to be able to start walking out here, because there's stuff we have to do and build out on the sugar scoop area, and we can't walk out there easily right now, nor can we finish up the deck coming back and any of that. So there's just a lot of things that it'd be nice to be able to walk out there to work on. So we want this piece of sole in here. I was just talking about that sole piece that we're trying to put in. This is the piece right here. So that's the part that goes along the table, and this part down below here is the part that goes out to the sugar scoop. You can see this little notch piece there that sits into the opening down to the sugar scoop, so it gives it some support there. But the rest of it we have to support back behind here and along this back edge down here as well. This is where it inserts into the current bulkhead. We just stuck this in here because we don't want this to collapse down. It's only being held by this little piece right now. So And we clamped it over there with a board too to help it not do anything odd. But we're trying to get this up here, probably not today, but the very next day, because if we can get all these support pieces in and glued today, come Monday, we'll be able to put that in. So I'm standing down in the port hull storage compartment that we've been preparing to get this floor onto. And we've got our laser level here that's going to give us the height that we need. So right now it's matched up right along the edge of the sole of the cockpit up there, and that we want this sole piece we're putting on to match right up where it goes with that. So we've got the laser on there, and then I've got this piece that we're going to be putting on right now, and we also have pieces up there to go along that edge, pieces right there to go along this edge. Over here it actually sits on top of here, so we don't have to have any support right here. But then behind me over here, there's where this ends, there's a little piece here that goes in there. So we got all those set, everything's sanded, everything's cleaned. We've already tabbed and coved and tabbed and peel plied the 3 sides right here. So those are all set. That way, again, once the sole's in here, we don't have to try to reach up underneath it here and do all that work. The least amount of reaching. Now we're probably going to tab the underside of the sole, so we will have to reach up there, but at least it's only one of the 2 that we have to do, so that's not too bad. And then out in the stern of the boat, Brian's mixing up a batch of thickened epoxy right now, and I'll just use the laser to show me where to apply the epoxy along here. And then we're going to put a couple screws in to hold these boards until they set. Then we'll pull those screws out and fill the holes with epoxy. So everything's set. Got my robust true impact driver ready to put our screws in, and that is all set. I got screws, so everything is planned. Now I just need epoxy and I'll do it. All right, so that's it. All of these are in. Got them screwed in to hold them in tight here because nothing to hold this up here. But we'll fill those holes later. And so this sole piece is ready to go in this section. Let me climb up. We need stairs. All set there. Ready to go.
Thanks to some help from our friends, we made good progress this week on extending the bridge deck out, and we solved our problem with power.
Yeah, plan number, I'm not sure, 4 on that, but we're still working out the absolute details of that with Schoening, but it looks like this may be the one we're going to do, and we're going to get started on building the diesel tanks in either next week or the one after, one of the 2. So coming up pretty quickly. But you also notice we're standing in front of the car here. Well, you know, the boat's car, the tender. It's just covered up here, so protect it from the sun. But the reason I'm standing in front of this is because we had another problem, if you'll recall, with our electric outboard. It's just not having enough power. Well, we have a solution for that now. And we're going to go over that with you in an upcoming video. But thank you for watching this week and spending a bunch of time with us. We always appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you to all of our patrons listed here. We very much appreciate all of you. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon to be notified of our next video.
Right, so we'll see you next week for more boat work.
Bye.
Bye.